All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin, and I'm a co-founder here at Hometown Social and founder and lead operator for D1 Brand Coach. And today I'm joined by my sister and co-founder, Katie, and she is also the founder of Amazon Ally. So Hometown Social is a boutique marketing firm that creatively positions why you exist in front of those you serve. And Katie and I founded the company about 2 years ago now, and we look to serve anywhere from small to medium sized businesses that are mainly located online, not as much brick and mortar stores, but those who are trying to reach their client using creative services, graphics, storytelling, and all of that. So we look for people who have high quality products and a story to tell. So this podcast today is mostly oriented around serving small businesses and digital marketing and kind of taking the experiences that we have and the questions that most of our clients come to with us and expanding on them here. So welcome today. And I'm excited to get into some of the stuff that we talked about in preparation for today.
Making sure that my mic is on this time since I tend to not have it on in these sometimes.
You are speaking. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me now? Hey, can you hear me now?
Hold on. We are having technical difficulties.
Hello?
Yep, that
Can
works.
you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. That was my fault. I had my wrong speaker setting set up.
Oh.
So I did a brief introduction, and normally we start off the show with our Fast Five, which is just a recap of the week in either 5 pointers, tips, tricks, questions, overview. It's a way for us to take what we've learned in the past week and apply it here and share it with the community. So I'm ready if you want me to start, but if you're ready, Katie, I'm not going to stop you.
No, I'm ready to go too. I can't remember who started last time. I'm trying to go back and forth just to get a little bit of variety here. But you go ahead and start, and then I'll do mine and segue into the segment afterward.
Of course. So looking at today, I really wanted to focus on what's important when getting started with your company. If you're a startup or if you're someone who has been working in the industry for a long time and now are finally going off on your own and doing freelancing, or if you're somebody who has a product, what do I need to focus on? What is the things I need to put in place in order to be successful? So my Fast Five real quick is just an overview of the things that I think are most important for those who have started a company or are just recently being put online. So the first one is marketing strategy, branding, standard operating procedures. What I want to talk about with this is you got to have some overarching goal and some objective that you're going to be aimed at. And in that marketing strategy, you've got to be able to implement your branding and speak to the clientele or the purchaser of the products that you're selling. And you got to be able to have the standard operating procedures in place in order to fulfill that. So having a strategy and knowing what we're doing and why. So there has to be an outcome. It could be anything from brand awareness. It could be driving direct product sales. It could be getting them on our email list. Driving them to our website to look at a certain page or engage in certain content. Those are marketing strategies. And then the branding is essential. You have to have all of your stuff in place in order to be a trustworthy place for your clientele to land. And the standard operating procedures are how you fulfill that service. So that's important to have nailed down and how you go through that process. Number 2 is the website. You got to want to focus on the landing pages being concise, having the right information, and knowing the questions that the client is going to have or the customer is going to have when they land on the page, and being ready to answer that with information that's readily available, that's easy to access, and has low barriers to entry. You don't want to put up a wall on normal features and to learn more, right? You want to use that for value offers. So if someone is getting something as a guide in return, you can put a gateway that's an email, so that gets sent in an email, so you get some contact information out of it. But if they're just learning about your product, you want to leave it to where there is no barriers to entry, because they'll jump off the site immediately. The third thing is SEO. So just because you build a website doesn't mean that it's going to be findable, and you really want to focus on having the long tail keywords and the parent topics that you really want to rank for. Figure out what you have to do to compete in your niche. Some are going to be harder than others, and you'll be surprised at what you're able to do. And looking at the different strategies that come along with that, ghostwriting, not ghostwriting, writing material or creating content for other companies, showing your expertise or referencing your products in that regard, getting backlinks to your site, and then also, serving the value. There's plenty of strategies to look up, but SEO needs to be a priority at the beginning, setting the foundation for you to grow. Social media marketing is the other way to drive traffic to your site. Doing more than just dances and participating in trends. You got to find your lane in social media and at least do their bare minimum on those accounts. So having something in place in order to look professional on those. So that's definitely the place to start on that. And the last one's automations. All of the tools that are available to you to automate the post-sales process. So shipping and tracking, to nurture campaigns. So having 4 or 5 emails when someone subscribes to your email list that are set up to overview who you are and to introduce your offer. All of that stuff is the basics and what you need to have set up for your new business online.
I'm actually just taking some notes. You mentioned something specifically that I think we can go ahead and give a tangible task and resource to for the listeners. So you mentioned, planning and prepping for your website and making sure that you try to answer any questions that your clients might have, before they even leave the site. Make sure you address all the things that they're thinking. And I think a great way to do that is to look at some competing sites and see what your competitors are addressing on their websites. But also, make a mental note or take a pen and pad whenever you're on sales calls and just try to figure out all of the pain points and all of the problems that most of your clients come to you with, because I can guarantee a lot of them repeat from sales call to sales call or from client to client. And if you can get ahead of those questions, like Justin mentioned, it builds trust and builds credibility right from the beginning and makes them feel like they've found the right company to work with, the right place to be. And so that's, something we like to provide a lot on the podcast, is something you can do starting now to really help, drive sales or push the needle for your business or, help your operations. And so that's a tangible task you can walk away with now, is start to make a mental note of what you hear a lot, from your clients as to what pain points they're trying to address or what issues they're having, and take a peek at some of the competitor websites that you can acknowledge in your space and see what questions they're answering so that you can make your website really work for you and for your clients.
Completely. And one of the things that I heard from one of our clients that was funny was, if we're not going to be the leader, then we at least need to be good at copying. So if you're not going to spend the money to hire and try to really push the needle, then you at least need to have your fundamentals in place from looking at what other people in your industry have, and then just tailoring it to what makes you unique. So
yeah,
right on.
We've got a lot of preparation these days, so we don't need to, feel ashamed for taking it and spinning it to your niche, because there's all kinds of different ways to get inspo out there. So we love it. I'll go ahead and dive into my Fast Five. For today, I have Q4 planning on my mind. Since I work with Amazon sellers, I'm always thinking about retail. And the biggest part of the year for a lot of retail sellers is in Q4. We've got some retail holidays like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Small Business Saturday, and then, of course, the Christmas time period. So we had our big Q4 planning meeting. I actually started doing this a couple weeks ago. I definitely like to plan ahead, but here are 5 tips and tricks to manage the crazy. Number 1, start planning now. I was a very meticulous student, and so I definitely plan ahead. I try not to procrastinate, but especially when it comes to Q4, like never is too soon. Even a year before, I'll save things and make a couple notes at the end of the season so that for the following year, I can, start to prep early. So start planning now for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the holiday season, especially on Amazon. I'm not sure if Walmart is the same, but there's some deals and promotions that have deadlines. Vendor Central, I think it's already too late now to submit any deals and deadlines, but for Seller Central, they're still open for now, and they're open for the new secret fall Prime Day event. So there will be a second Prime Day this year on Amazon, and it's open to go ahead and start submitting your promo. So definitely start planning now. You'll want to get a lot of that solidified pretty soon. If it's things like a deal or a coupon you've got to submit since there's deadlines coming up. Set two, ironically, or number two is set deadlines. Amazon arbitrarily gives you a few deadlines you've got to deal with, but as far as inventory or graphics or advertising campaigns, think in the back of your head what you really want to push and what your goal is for the Q4 season, and then start to chip away at, levels of importance and what's really going to move the needle as to how you set your deadlines. But then you really need to stick to them, communicate them to your client, get everybody on board, the rest of your team, which segues into piece 4, which is making sure every person on your team knows what roles belong to them and they can figure out their schedule within your set of deadlines. This gives everybody else a little bit of ownership. It makes it easier for you to manage all of the moving pieces that inevitably come with Q4. Number 4, follow up on due dates promptly. This is just a good, bit of practice in preaching here for project management in general. But when it comes to the normal daily tasks that you have to get done, in addition to every other initiative you're trying to fill for the Q4 season, it can really get lost in the weeds. And so as soon as you realize something is ready to move on for client approval, or if, one team member has finished their part of a project, it's on to the next, make sure you communicate and that everyone has got, all of those lines of communication open and they're passing the baton from one, runner to the next, per se. The final Fast 5 for Q4 preparation. Take a deep breath and only focus on the most important and needle pushing items, because at the end of the day, if you hit all of your milestones, that's fantastic. But if you miss a few, you want to make sure that they're nothing, that's part of the biggest piece of your plan. So as long as you're keeping up to date with your deadlines, you're making plans in advance, you're making sure everyone knows what their roles are and you're staying on top of things, you really shouldn't miss anything or have to sacrifice any pieces. But, life happens, things get in the way. And so if you've got your top priorities always taken care of, if there's a few things on the bottom of the list that get dropped off, at least you still have hit all the majors that you want to hit for your Q4 season. I have a cool way to segue this. This Fast 5, I think we've both brought into play a lot of the things that we've learned that take a long time to kind of culminate and squish into 5 quick facts. And so, just to highlight how important it is to continually be educating, Justin and I, we've got the programs that he mentioned earlier, the D1 Brand Coach and the Amazon Ally. And so I do want to take some time to focus on what kinds of needs these can meet and what kind of pain points they can address. We're always trying to self-educate and always trying to give our listeners a way to do the same for themselves. And so we've put a huge combination of all the things that we've learned over the years into these master classes. And it's honestly a great opportunity. So we'd love to take some time to dive in and break down a little bit more piece by piece of what they can really serve. So Justin, I've got a few questions for you. And once you're finished going through them, we'll know a lot more about D1 Brand Coach, and then we can flip it to Amazon Ally and you can ask me the same questions.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's let it roll. Let's see it.
Perfect. All right. So question 1, this is, kind of the gateway into it. What is the origin of D1 Brand Coach? Why did you come up with it? What were you really thinking about when the idea was sparked in your brain? And if you could just dive in and tell us how it started.
Yeah. So I played football for Ohio State from 2014 on until 2018. And in my time there, NIL was not a thing. So name, image, likeness, where players are allowed to make money in college off of their brand, their personal brand that they build. And so in that time, I had a lot of guys that I played with that either started early in their career and were replaced by a new hot shot that had come in that had the skills and the talent to replace them, or they suffered an injury that led to the end of their career, or just never being able to really play the same. So a lot of these guys come in as highly touted recruits, easily follow or high followers, but no real brand identity and mission and personal touch to the model that needs to be established for these guys. So I think it's great that NIL is in place and that these players can make money from their brand deals. But when I really look at this, is I see the ability for players to build a community around the values and the mission that they have and why they play. There's obviously going to be guys that are just super talented that can demand a following, but the whole idea of this is for the players that come from the rough areas, that come from a tough background, that are trying to make sure that they are in a position that they can work from for the rest of their life. So whether they make it to the NFL or not, they're able to have a brand and a platform and a business that takes advantage of all of these opportunities that have come their way. So the inspiration was a few guys that I played with who were hurt and then ended up having to return back to a really bad situation. And they were talented guys, hardworking guys, but kind of lost in a direction. And they were purpose-driven people who, really wanted to go back to their communities and make an impact. And some of them do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when they have the opportunity to build a huge platform like they did, there needs to be a business strategy mindset behind it to emphasize that and to change the communities that they come from. So that's where this came from.
I think that also opens a lot, for transparency, because all the time we see large social platforms, but we don't really realize that there's no economics behind it and there's no way to make real money, and they haven't really gone through a business plan or figured out a way to monopolize their followers. And so I think this is a great idea just from that standpoint, to give some of these athletes another way to, kind of fall back on and really capitalize from the huge following that they've, built over time. So it's a great idea. The second question I want to ask is what to expect from D1 Brand Coach. What kinds of services do you think you can provide, and what's the plan there?
Yeah, so in D1 Brand Coach, the whole objective is to go over basic models that exist for personal brands. So that way, the best thing that you can give somebody is a new idea and a way of thinking. So I really try to start off with showing examples of how people are monetizing their personal brands and the different types of value that they bring to their followers. So that's the main thing to expect, is that you're going to get a lot of new ideas and a lot of information around people who are being successful at doing this, and then diving into some of the specifics and some of the checklists that are involved in creating a personal brand, and then obviously kind of leveraging who you should bring into your corner as part of that too. And that's the main thing to expect, is that you're going to get a bunch of new ideas, and you're going to think about the way you live your life in a way that you never had before.
That's something I think is really exciting about the opportunity, is that not only will there be account management and direction there, but there'll be a huge learning and teaching component, which is going to be something really unique to what D1 Brand Coach can provide for these, I want to say kids, but a lot of them are adult athletes as well. So next, speaking of kids, speaking of student athletes, who would make the perfect student, or who would make the perfect athlete for D1 Brand Coach to work with?
Yeah, I would say the player that has the person who would make the perfect, I don't want to call him customer, but the person that would be perfect for this class is going to be somebody who has an entrepreneurial tendency, who wants to take ownership of the brand that they're building, and wants to kind of go beyond just doing brand deal one-off posts or getting paid a sponsorship and then no longer really having control. These are players that are looking at the greater impact of their time on this earth and where they come from and what they can do in their communities. So if someone is highly talented and has a work ethic and also takes on the responsibility and desires the ownership of their personal brand, that's who would want to take this course and look at the information and see the ideas and then start to implement some of these strategies.
I think you outlined that in a really great way. It's someone who wants to have a bigger purpose and wants to definitely use their career and their followers for more than just the one-off, I'm a Colgate brand rep or something like that. And I think it's really important to be honest and to be transparent with expectations for both sides. If those are the kind of deals you want to make, and then maybe it's not worth putting in the extra effort to go through something like D1 Brand Coach. But if you want to make a bigger impact and a longer lasting impact, then it's definitely worth it. So finding the right clientele is really important. For the last question, What are some tips, for taking the course and being involved with D1 Brand Coach can you give, or, what can they do to prepare for, the interactions that you might have?
Yeah, really when you're going through the course, take your phone and throw it in the other room and remove all distractions and actually listen to the examples and the ideas and try to internalize what that would look like for yourself. So actually take the information and mentally apply it to your situation, and go into it with the idea of, I want to learn something and I want to apply something. And if it's one thing you take out of there, then, and you apply it and it leads you on another direction, that's more beneficial for you, then that's what the class is worth. So it's not necessarily memorizing all of the different components that makes a good personal brand, but if it's a strategy, just be looking for tools to immediately apply to your life and business and brand.
That's awesome. I think that pretty much wraps up a lot of good details. We can honestly talk about this for a lot longer as well, and we can probably pick some questions from the audience for next week if we want to dive back in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that leads me to some of the questions, to turn them back on you. I really would love to know the origin of Amazon Ally and why you started that project, and what the story is behind the masterclass.
Ironically, the masterclass really started because we, in my old agency, had really high turnover. And so not only was I managing my own book of business, but I was managing, 2 teams, overseeing their success. But then I also, because of the expertise I had, was really involved with the training portion of things, which can be really exhausting. And to be honest, when Justin and I started our company together, I just wanted to make sure I had a more replicable way to be able to teach people to do what I do and to train them and to give them a more hands-on approach and independent learning style. And so originally the videos were created as like a training series for anyone we might hire in the future. But then I realized it could be much bigger than that. And so not only does it give you expertise for starting a business on Amazon or for managing Amazon clients, but it also, teaches you how to start a business and how to know a little bit more about marketing and how to do advertising. So it really became a masterclass and a crash course for business alongside of a crash course for managing an Amazon account.
Yeah, you mentioned a point there that I know is a real focus on the course, and I think that would be something to highlight here, and what someone should expect when they're taking the course. And I know one of the things that you were highlighting is that business aspect of it and the education on the impact of what these numbers mean in a greater sense. I'd love for you to kind of explain more about what someone would be expecting when they're taking Amazon Ally as a course.
As a course, it's very hands-on. It's very in-depth. It kind of starts out with some of the basics. If you see anybody posting about selling on Amazon, online, you're going to get some of that stuff too, but that's just to build the framework. And I think what makes Amazon Ally really unique is the fact that it doesn't just stop there. A lot of the masterclasses that I've seen and I've taken myself from others, they really just give you top of the line kind of overviews, and they don't really teach you everything you need to know to be independent afterwards. But with my class, I've included so much detail and so many live examples and troubleshooting live and, things like that you can really expect to learn and sharpen your skills with business, with data analytics, with Excel, with overall business strategy, project management, client management, inventory preparation, overall ideas for sales, competitor research, like anything really that has to do with e-commerce. You'll learn a lot of things about each of those. And I touch on all of them because that's the level of client management that we provide here as a service. And so, in doing the due diligence of how I would want to train a fellow employee, you're getting all of that information in the masterclass just because it's, I created the content for a special purpose and then realized it could be really helpful for others. So you're really getting a deep dive into business 101, marketing 101, e-commerce 101, and so on.
When you look at and it's not hidden, it's everywhere. There's tons of gimmicks, and join my class, and it's people who are making money off of selling classes, not out of actual methodical and being a practitioner in what they're teaching. Most of the people that you see online are doing some sort of a get rich quick kind of a thing. And that leads to some individuals who are purchasing those courses because they want to feel good. They can spend $100, whatever they spend, and they get what they pay for, right?
Yeah.
Who's the perfect student and that person who will benefit the most from an Amazon Ally course? And, speaking to what you just said, maybe that's that differentiator. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about who the perfect student is and why, coming out of what they expect from the course.
Absolutely. The perfect student for Amazon Ally is definitely not someone who's looking to get rich quick. If you are, you can still take the class and you'll be able to pull some things away from it. But it's going to take someone a bit longer to go through my course. I don't want this to scare anyone, but I think there's probably about 50 videos just because there's so many things that I wanted to get out there. I never wanted to forget all the bits and pieces again, and I want it to be really organized. So the perfect student is going to be somebody who actually wants to learn all of these things, whether it's because you've started a business and you want to, train your employees to be account managers, or if you've just started selling on Amazon for the very first time and you really want to do this right. Those are going to be the people who should invest in the course, because ultimately the work that they put in is going to reap benefits for them in the long run.
Yeah, so somebody who's looking to take this course definitely wants to get the most out of it. And you have as much information as I've seen in an intro overview course as anything else that I've ever taken a part of. Talk about some of the ways and the tips for people who want to get the most out of the course. What are some of the things that they should be prepared for, and how can they maximize what they take away from their time doing Amazon Ally?
Absolutely. There's a few different ways to answer this. So there's a couple different client bases that would want to take this course in the first place. And I'll kind of speak to some tips and tricks for those who are selling on Amazon themselves and using this course to teach themselves how to do it. If you just started an Amazon business, it's really best to do your research and figure out what kind of a product either you want to develop or you want to sell on Amazon prior to starting the course, because the course will teach you right from the beginning how to create the Amazon account, but you'll need to have an LLC and you'll need to have a legitimate business, ready to go in order to start selling on Amazon. They do require you to be, put together. So if you have some of those things in place beforehand, it definitely makes the setup easier. And then you can just dive right into the class and move, one by one. If you are working at an agency and you're just starting to learn how to do Amazon account management, or if you're, doing it on your own, you want to sharpen your skills, you can kind of just go right in and start. It does start a little bit ahead of the beginning, because most often if you're an account manager, you don't help people create their seller accounts and set up from that far in the beginning. So you'll actually get some context ahead of time that you wouldn't normally get, which understanding now and looking back would have helped me before. So if you're your own, Amazon seller and you're just getting started, make sure you've done the prep work. And if you're anyone else, really, you can just kind of dive right in.
I think that this course is one of those courses that, if set up properly, or if you go into it and you're wanting to learn and you have questions and you're excited about the opportunities that are on the other side of this incredible landscape of Amazon and Walmart and what the internet has brought to our doorstep as opportunities to make a living off of, and travel and do all the things that come along with remote work that we all crave and desire, that this course is the first step in that direction. So I'm really glad you got a chance to talk about it more in detail. And I hope people take advantage of the information and the time and how diligently you put all that together, and they make something of it. So thanks, Katie.
Absolutely. I think this has been, great to kind of voice everything and get all of our info out there about the courses. Obviously, working with us one-on-one and working with our team, you'll get to learn a lot too, but there's never enough time in the day, when you're doing your consult calls, to go into depth in the ways that we would love to. And so that's kind of the inspiration for these courses. And I think it also will help you be a better client and help you be a better business owner if you take either of these. And so we're glad to be able to put them out there for our clients and for anyone else just looking to sharpen their skills.
Well, I think that was a jam-packed 30 minutes, and there's a lot of good information in there. These courses are both available on htsocial.com /co/courses. courses. So looking forward to you guys joining and getting involved in the community, and let's go impact the world and leave a legacy of good. So thanks, guys.
We'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye now.